The plea, before the battle. The message came through the static of the galactic network, carried on a private encrypted channel only used in moments of life or death importance. Every military leader, from the smallest asteroid garrison to the most fortified star citadel, heard the same trembling voice. "This is Admiral Korth of the Virelin Armada," the voice began, his tone breaking like metal under strain. "I beg you, do not attack the humans." The council members who were listening in their chambers exchanged glances. It was almost laughable. Humans, the small, isolated species from a single blue world. They had no empire, no vast colonies, no seat in the Galactic Council. Yet here was Korth, one of the most decorated war commanders in the galaxy, speaking as if they were the end of all things. The transmission flickered, revealing the Admiral's face. His scales were pale and his eyes sunk deep into the sockets. Behind him, the war room was dark, lit only by the faint red glow of warning lights. "You think they are weak because you have not met them in war," he continued. "You think they will retreat if you corner them. You are wrong. Once they decide to fight, they will never stop. You will never flee." Some in the council chamber chuckled quietly. Others leaned forward, sensing there was more to his words than fear. Korth took a deep breath. "This is not rumor, not myth, not political scare tactics," he said. "I have seen them in battle. I have stood against them and lived to regret it." The chamber fell into silence as Korth began to recount the day it all started. It was meant to be a simple show of force. His fleet had intercepted what their sensors identified as a lone human warship on the edge of contested space. The humans had refused to turn back. Korth, eager to make an example of them, ordered his fleet to surround the vessel. On his command, the Vyre. Ullen guns roared to life. Energy bolts streaked across the void. The human ship didn't even return fire at first. It simply moved, fast, far faster than their scanners could lock on. Korth frowned, wondering if their targeting systems were malfunctioning. But then, the readings began. His science officer's voice trembled over the comm. "Admiral, the power output from their reactor, it's climbing beyond safe limits for any known species." Before Korth could respond, the first of his destroyers vanished. Not exploded, vanished. There was no debris, no escape pods, no energy signature. One moment it was there, the next only empty space remained. Korth barked orders, pulling his ships back. The human vessel finally turned, its hull shimmering with a strange shifting light. It unleashed no missiles, no plasma fire. Instead, a wave of invisible force rippled outward. One by one, Virelin ships went silent, their lights extinguished, their engines frozen. The crew's screams filled the comm channels until static consumed them. In less than 4 minutes, half his fleet was gone. His flagship was struck next. Panels blew apart, sparks rained from the ceiling, and gravity failed. As he floated, weightless and gasping, he saw something burned into the metal hull of his bridge, a symbol, human in origin. It was the crest of their fleet. Beneath it were words in their language translated automatically by his implants. "We remember." Korth's voice cracked as he told the council, "I thought escape was possible. I was wrong. We jumped to another system, 3 days travel, only to find them already waiting for us. Do you understand what that means? They can follow you anywhere. They can be at your throat no matter how far you run." The council leader, a tall insectoid with polished mandibles, leaned forward. "Why are you telling us this now, Admiral? What do you expect us to do? Bow to these humans?" Korth shook his head slowly. "I expect you to survive," he said. "And survival means leaving them alone. Do not provoke them. Do not threaten them. If they fight you, they will fight until you and everything you love are gone." Static filled the screen for a moment before the transmission stabilized again. Korth's eyes scanned the room through the feed. "I plead with you. This is your only warning," he said. "They are not conquerors by nature, but once you give them reason to come for you, they will not stop, they will not forgive, and they will not let you flee." The transmission ended. In the council chamber, the silence was thick. Some members scoffed and whispered to each other. Others sat frozen, thinking of the quiet threat in the Admiral's words. Far away on the edge of known space, human warships drifted silently in the darkness, waiting, watching, and listening. First contact goes wrong. Korth had faced wars before. He had fought pirate kings in the Outer Rift. He had crushed rebellions that burned entire moons. But this was different. There was no strategy in the galaxy that could prepare him for what happened when they fired on that lone human warship. The day was cold and quiet in the void. His fleet drifted in perfect formation, 52 ships strong, destroyers in the front, cruisers holding the flanks, and his massive dreadnought in the center like a beating heart of steel. The human vessel floated ahead, small compared to his own ship. Its black hull was sleek, almost featureless, like it had been carved from the shadows themselves. Korth's second in command, Commander Vress, leaned forward in his chair. "They do not respond to hails, Admiral," she said, her voice sharp. "They have powered their engines but not weapons," Korth smirked. "Then they die without firing a shot," he said. The order was given, and the Varellan fleet unleashed its fury. Lances of energy lit the darkness. Missiles streaked toward the target. The void trembled with the shockwaves of their combined firepower. When the glare faded, the human ship was still there, not a single scorch mark, not a single dent. Its hull shimmered faintly, like ripples of water over black glass. Vress's hands tightened on the console. "Admiral, they didn't even raise shields," she whispered. Then, the human vessel moved. It didn't turn or dodge. It vanished. One heartbeat, it was in front of them. The next, it appeared behind their formation without a trace of engine flare. Sensors went wild. Alarms screamed. One of his destroyers exploded without warning, scattering molten fragments into the void. Another ship simply went dark, every light extinguished. Korth's comms filled with screams, static, and then nothing. In less than 30 seconds, 5 ships were gone. "They're playing with us," Vress said, her voice cracking. Korth's claws dug into the arm of his chair. "Lock all weapons. Target their core," he barked. The fleet fired again, this time with concentrated force, but the human vessel seemed to dissolve into the darkness, reappearing right above Korth's dreadnought. Through the viewport, he saw it in chilling detail. Its hull bore no windows, no visible weapons, only a single glowing emblem, a circle of white stars around a red mark. The sight sent a strange cold through his blood. Without warning, a low hum filled the dreadnought. Not from their own systems. This was coming from them. The air on the bridge vibrated, making the crew's teeth ache. Then, the human ship released something. Not a beam, not a missile. It was a pulse, invisible, yet heavy. Korth's ship shuddered. Light. His flickering, systems crashing one by one, he could hear the terrified voices of his crews across the fleet. "Engines offline, weapons failing, they're inside our systems." One of his captains shouted over the comm, "They've locked us out of our own ships. They're controlling our airlocks." Korth felt the floor tilt under him as artificial gravity failed. Panels burst open, showering sparks across the bridge. Vress clung to her seat, her eyes wide. "Admiral, we need to retreat, now." But even as she said it, the human vessel turned slowly, almost lazily. Through the void, a single transmission came across. It was in their own language, perfectly clear. A calm human voice said only 3 words. "You chose this." And then the killing began in earnest. One by one, ships in Korth's proud fleet were erased from the stars. No wreckage, no survivors, only empty space where moments before there had been warships. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Korth's dreadnought shook violently, and for the first time in his life, the great admiral knew fear. He gave the order. "All ships, jump, jump anywhere." The stars outside blurred as his ship tore itself into faster-than-light travel. For a moment, the crushing weight of that human presence was gone. For a moment, he believed they had escaped, but deep down, he knew the truth. The hunt had just begun. The unseen weapon, Korth had survived the jump. Or at least, that's what he told himself. The dreadnought's battered hull groaned in the stillness of a new star system. No human ships on the scanners, no sign of pursuit, only the quiet hum of damaged systems struggling to keep the vessel alive. Vress floated toward him, her scales scorched from an earlier blast. "We made it, Admiral," she said, forcing a shaky smile. Korth didn't answer. His eyes scanned the dark edges of space beyond the viewport. Something in his gut told him the escape wasn't real. Not from them. The crew worked in silence, repairing what they could. Engines rebooted, shields recharged. But as the power systems came online, an unfamiliar symbol flickered across every screen on the bridge. It was the same human emblem he had seen burned into his hull, the circle of white stars and the red mark. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Then, the lights dimmed. Not from a power failure. This was deliberate. Shadows grew long across the bridge as if the very starlight outside was fading. The air felt heavier. A strange pressure pressed against Korth's mind. At first it was subtle, a flicker of doubt. Then it became sharper, like invisible claws scratching at his thoughts. One of the junior officers dropped to his knees, clutching his head. "They're here," he gasped. "They're in my mind. Get them out." Another officer screamed and tore at her console, trying to rip it apart with her bare hands. Her voice cracked. "They know my name. They're saying it over and over." Korth gritted his teeth. This wasn't a weapon he could see or shoot down. It was inside them, a psychological strike that attacked thought itself. No fire, no smoke, just fear so deep it stripped away reason. He slammed a clawed fist onto the arm of his chair. "Shut down the systems. Kill every comm, every sensor." Vress hesitated. "If we blind ourselves, Admiral." "Do it!" he roared. The bridge went dark. Only emergency lights remained. The humming in the air stopped. The pressure in their minds eased. But then, a voice came through the emergency speakers. Not loud, not threatening. Calm, human, and impossibly close. "We don't miss," it said. "We don't forget." Korth's blood ran cold. The location readout on his personal console was flickering. Somehow, the humans had overwritten the navigation data with a single set of coordinates. Not random. The exact location of Korth's homeworld. Vress's eyes widened. "They're telling us where they're going," she whispered. "They want us to watch." The Admiral's claws trembled as he realized the truth. The humans weren't just chasing him. They were sending a message to every enemy. It was a warning, carved into the mind of anyone who dared stand against them. This was the unseen weapon, not just technology, not just firepower. It was the human will, unbroken, unrelenting, once you had their attention. There was nowhere in the galaxy you could hide. The Admiral's claws trembled as he realized the truth. The humans weren't just chasing him, they were sending a message to every enemy. It was a warning, carved into the mind of anyone who dared stand against them. This was the unseen weapon, not just technology, not just firepower. It was the human will, unbroken, unrelenting. Once you had their attention, there was nowhere in the galaxy you could hide. The relentless hunt. The dreadnought limped through the void. Every system that could be shut down was offline. Even life support ran at minimum power. Korth thought maybe, just maybe, they could hide in the dark. No signals, no light, nothing for the humans to track. For 3 days, the silence held. The crew began to relax. Some even believed the humans had given up. Korth didn't. He hadn't survived a lifetime of war by believing in luck. On the 4th day, the first sign came. It was small, a faint ping on the long-range sensors, barely noticeable. The tech officer said it was probably debris drifting in the sector. An hour later, another ping, closer, always behind them. By the 7th hour, the pings had formed a pattern. Whoever or whatever was following was matching their speed exactly. The crew whispered about ghosts. Korth said nothing. He had seen this before. The humans didn't rush the kill. They waited, tightening the noose. He ordered a course change. 3 rapid jumps in random directions. The dreadnought lurched through warped space, stars bending into streaks. Each time they arrived in a new system, the scanners swept the void. Nothing. On the 3rd jump, Korth almost allowed himself to breathe until the comm crackled to life. It wasn't a distress signal. It wasn't even encrypted. A human voice, calm and steady, filled the bridge. "You are wasting time," it said. "You will never make it home before we do." The crew froze. Every screen on the bridge flickered. A live feed appeared, not from their own cameras, but from somewhere else. Korth's blood turned to ice. The feed showed the skies above his homeworld. Human warships hung there, silent and still, blocking out the sun. Vress's voice shook. This is impossible. They can't be there. We're still weeks away." Korth's jaw clenched. "They don't follow the same rules we do," he said. "They don't need weeks." The crew began to panic. Some begged to turn back, others to surrender. But Korth knew surrender meant nothing to an enemy like this. He tried another desperate course change, but when they arrived, the humans were already waiting. Not one ship, but an entire strike group lining up in perfect silence, their black hulls gleaming under a dying sun. One of the human ships sent a final transmission. It was only 2 words. Almost over. Korth felt something deep inside him break, not from fear of death. He had faced that before, but from the realization that every move he made, every escape he planned, they had already predicted. The hunt wasn't about catching him, it was about showing him that he had no control, nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. The collapse of an empire. The first explosions over the virulent capital were silent. In the cold black of space, no one heard the sound, only saw the light. But the light wasn't chaotic. It wasn't random. It was surgical. Every detonation came exactly where it needed to. Military command towers vanished in PIDHC. Perfect synchrony. Defense satellites blinked out like dying stars. In the Grand Council chamber, chaos erupted. Leaders shouted, soldiers ran, but Korth knew it was already too late. He had seen this before. On other worlds that crossed the humans, the pattern was always the same. First, the outer defenses fell without warning. No prolonged battles, no chance to regroup. Second, the communications grid collapsed. Even the private, hidden networks the Empire swore were untraceable went dark. Third, the strikes began inside the cities, not on civilians, never on civilians, only on military factories, shipyards, and weapons labs. Every tool of war the Virulents had built was being erased. From the windows of the council tower, Korth saw the capital's sky glow red with burning shipyards. But there were no human ships visible in the atmosphere, only shadows moving between clouds. Warships so large their outlines looked like pieces of night torn from the sky. The council leader slammed a claw against the table. Where are they? Why can't we see them? Korth turned slowly. They want you to not see them until it's too late, he said. And for you, it already is. Moments later, the main defense fleet rose from the planet's surface to intercept. Hundreds of ships launched into orbit. They never came back. From the tower, the leaders watched their screens as one by one, every icon representing a Virulent warship vanished. No wreckage, no survivors, only silence. Across the Empire, the same was happening. In distant sectors, fleets awoke to find human ships already in position. In border colonies, military garrisons were dismantled before they could even call for help. In deep space outposts, officers woke from sleep to see human hulls blotting out the stars. The Empire's reach was being cut away at the speed of thought. Every day, another world went dark, and still, no demands came from the humans. No treaties, no ultimatums, just the quiet, unstoppable dismantling of everything the Virulents had built. By the end of the first week, the council chamber was nearly empty. Some leaders had fled. Some had taken their own lives rather than face what was coming. Korth remained, standing alone at the center of the great hall, watching the sky burn. He knew the humans wouldn't stop until nothing of their military remained, and when that day came, the Virulents would be remembered in the galaxy only as a warning, not as an empire, not as a power, but as a species that ignored the plea of a man who had already seen the future. The last broadcast. The capital's sky was no longer a sky, it was a wall of shadow. Human ships hung above the planet in absolute silence. No lights, no weapons fire. Just the quiet presence of something that owned the space it occupied. Korth stood in the council chamber alone. The others were gone, fled to bunkers hidden in deep space vaults or already dead. But he knew hiding meant nothing. The humans would find them, they always did. He walked to the ancient control throne at the center of the hall, its surface lit with 1,000 small screens. With a single command, he overrode every encryption key in the Empire. The broadcast would go everywhere. Warships, colonies, rival species, even pirate dens. If anyone was listening, they would hear. Static crackled. Korth leaned forward, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of truth. This is Admiral Korth of the Virulent Armada, he began. If you hear my voice, then listen. Listen as if your life depends on it, because it does. He told them what had happened, how the humans appeared without warning, how they erased fleets without debris, how they hunted without rest, How they fought without mercy once provoked, his words moved like a blade through the air, cutting away pride and arrogance. They do not conquer, he said. They do not enslave, they end, they will not leave survivors, they will not let you flee. He described the battles, the impossible maneuvers, the invisible weapons, the way they seemed to be everywhere at once. He spoke of the moment he realized escape was an illusion, how every jump, every change of course, every desperate tactic had been predicted before he even thought of it. As he spoke, the chamber lights dimmed, not because of power loss, but because something vast had moved between the sun and the planet. A human dreadnought, so enormous it blotted out the day, had taken position above the capital. The broadcast feeds began to distort. Korth knew they were listening. He also knew they were letting him finish. He took a breath. "This is my last warning to the galaxy," he said. "If you value your world, your people, your future, leave them alone. Do not threaten them. Do not test them, because once they decide to come for you, you will never make it out alive." The chamber doors shook under a heavy impact. Somewhere above, the defense towers exploded in a chain of silent fire. The floor trembled beneath his feet, but Korth didn't stop speaking. "They are not the monsters we thought. They are worse, because they are human." The last thing the galaxy saw before the feed went black was Korth standing tall in the middle of the council hall, a beam of pale light spilling through the shattered roof as human dropships descended. The sound of the feed cutting out echoed across every corner of space, followed by silence. No one escapes. The human fleet did not rush the final strike. They descended with the slow inevitability of a closing fist. From orbit, the Varellan capital looked like a dying ember, glowing where shipyards still burned, dark where power had already been cut. Korth stood at the shattered balcony of the council tower. Below him, the streets were empty. No soldiers, no citizens, only the wind carrying the distant hiss of fires that no one was left to put out. Above, the human dreadnoughts shifted, their black hulls aligned in a perfect circle around the planet, each one turned outward, not inward, blocking every possible escape vector. It was not just the capital they were sealing, it was the entire system. One by one, virulent escape ships tried to launch. None made it past the atmosphere. Some vanished in mid-flight. Some were pulled back down by invisible force. Others simply lost power and fell silently into the oceans. Vress, wounded but alive, stumbled onto the balcony beside Korth. They're letting some ships go," she whispered, pointing to the far horizon. Small freighters were lifting off without interference. Korth shook his head slowly. "They're not letting them go," he said. "They're following them. They'll let them think they escaped, until the humans decide it's time." In the deep black beyond the planet, ships began to vanish from the blockade line, not leaving, moving. Every time one disappeared, it reappeared light years away, right in the path of a fleeing vessel. Every jump, every wormhole, every secret route the Varellans had guarded for centuries. Already mapped, already intercepted. The humans didn't fire warning shots. They didn't broadcast demands. They simply appeared where the target was going next, again and again, until there was nowhere left to run. Until even the fastest ships stopped trying. Until hope itself was gone. The last Varellan warship in orbit turned toward open space. Its captain swore they could slip past the human lines. The ship's engines roared to full burn. It broke through the blockade gap and slammed into the shadow of a human vessel that hadn't been there seconds ago. The alien ship's hull cracked apart like glass, scattering into the void. Back on the balcony, Korth watched the sky go dark as the human ships slowly rotated, their hulls reflecting the fires below. He understood now. The humans weren't destroying his people because they hated them. They were doing it because they finished things. Once a hunt began, it ended only one way. For the first time, he smiled, not with joy, but with grim acceptance. They were right. He whispered to no one. No one escapes. Far above, the human fleet began to rise. No victory speech, no declaration. They simply left. The empire was gone, and the rest of the galaxy had been given its lesson in silence.